and welcome to Sonatype's Regulate to Innovate series, where today our topic is navigating software regulations, SBOMs, and beyond. I'm your host, Megan Leaders, the CMO of Sonatype, and today we're very excited to welcome Trac Bannon. She's the Senior Principal with MITRE Labs, and you are here to discuss this very important topic with us. Welcome, Trac.
Hey, thanks for the invite. Always glad to have a good conversation about an important topic.
It is important, and it has gained a lot of mind share over the last year or so, but in particular the last couple of months with all this regulation coming out. We hear about SBOMs a lot more proactively in our conversations, and maybe where we should start is just I'll have you give the simplest definition of what we're talking about when we say navigating the SBOM. What does that mean?
Sure. Well, I'll make a really interesting analogy, one that we'll all relate to, and that is a regular bill of materials. Let's say that you decide that you're going to put a swing set in the backyard for the kids or the grandkids, and you go and you buy a flat pack, and in that comes the bill of materials. It tells you how many screws there are and what size they are, all of the different boards that are there. So you actually can check and make sure these are all the things that are necessary, and I can validate their version. This is, an 1.5 inch screw. This is a 1/4 inch bolt, whatever those things are. Bill of material. Well, it's not different for software. If we're building software using components that we didn't build ourselves, right? We are using open source, we are purchasing, we're using available libraries. Well, I want that bill of materials anytime I'm looking at my software. I want to know what's inside it. What is that software bill of materials? So I can always validate, is it the right length? Is it the right size? Or does it have the right security posture? Is it the correct version that I can attest to that should be within my software ecosystem?
Perfect. I love that analogy. I've heard several over the years, and that one is excellent. With something we can all relate to. And I mentioned earlier, SBOM is something that's gaining a lot of mind share amongst a lot of people, not just our traditional developers, but folks throughout the entire organization. And part of what's driving that are regulations. And organizations should be much more aware of implementing new technologies, and SBOM is one of those areas of which is going to allow us to have more of a view of what's happening. Why is it so critical that folks stop, pay attention, and are aware of what these critical software regulations are?
Well, let's talk specifically about the regulation piece of it before we talk about SBOM. So whatever environment that you're in, whatever your domain is, you need to be aware of what that context is. So if I'm working in medical devices, well, I need to know a lot about medical devices. If I'm working in fintech, well, I need to know the rules of the road for the business. Same thing. I work a lot with the US government and the DoD. A lot of rules, regulations, right? Internationally, GDPR, there are lots of different rules. Those rules are specific to your domain. And almost always there are mandatory policies and regulations. So first of all, you need to get smart about your domain. What matters to your organization? What is mandated? What are those rules of the road? Then the next step is determining how does that manifest inside my organization, inside software that I buy, inside software that I build. So how do I make sure that those regulations, that I'm adhering to them, and that I am mandating that they be adhered to by those people who are helping me to build my software?
I'm curious to go a little deeper on SBOM in particular. So here we have this bill of materials. We've got the list of ingredients of what's in the software code, but maybe talk about why it's so critical to not just know. You gave the analogy of I know the nuts and the bolts. It came with my set to craft, but where SBOM plays a very pivotal role in as it pertains to security breaches or malicious code or vulnerabilities, maybe extend it a little bit more as to why and how software, having that, especially from third parties, having that bill of materials is so critically important.
Yeah, we're mixing two things together. So I want to make sure folks realize that there's policy and high regulation, and there are ways for us to codify and automate and be able to audit against that. SBOM is one of those mechanisms. And If there is a problem, there are a couple of different ways that you can be notified. And by problem, I'm actually going to move over to talking about the security piece of this. If there's a problem, if it is, recently we saw CrowdStrike, but I'm going to take it back to some of the other things that we've seen pop up. If a component that you're using has an issue and it is notified out into the public, whether it comes out through one of MITRE, maintains the CVE database for the world. There are lots of other organizations. Sonatype does a fantastic job of notifying people that are leveraging those tools that there's a security issue with a particular thing that's it's on your software bill of material. That gives the organization an immediate notification that they need to turn around and take action. Now, the action could be an evaluation that we are willing to accept this risk because whatever it is very low fidelity. It doesn't happen very often. The impact of it is low, right? Because we have low, medium, high, and critical. But if it's critical, you have the opportunity to take whatever action is necessary, whether it's isolating your environment because you want to, it could be something that is so catastrophic that it could be a 0-day issue. You might immediately segregate everything, segment it off, and take action right away. So that list, that gives you a way of saying, we need to take care of it right now. Think about it as though it is a recall mechanism. Think about if you have a car and there's a recall against it. If you don't know a particular components in your car, or if somebody's not knocking at your door or sending you emails or sending you snail mail, you don't know that you're at risk. So I often will think about it in terms of that recall mechanism. An SBOM gives me a recall mechanism to say, we have to take action now.
I love it. I love it. You're able to take all of these concepts and regulations and even these specifics and translate it into how organizations should really be thinking about not just a requirement, but how it can have systemic impact on the organization if we don't take kind of these foundational steps, and then in some cases, some regulated steps to be compliant. And you're coming at it from an architect's perspective. Are there some fundamental architectural principles, best practices that organizations we should think about prioritizing over one another to integrate SBOMs to meet the regulatory requirements that have been set forth?
So I will always go back to basics and say you need to adopt secure software development practices from the very beginning. And if you didn't, you need to go back and your security folks and your delivery teams, your developers, your engineers, your architects, you need to come together and not just shift left. We talk about shifting security left and starting as early as possible. We actually need to kind of shift ubiquitously. It needs to shift everywhere. So security needs to be everywhere, and your delivery team needs to be a part of that. So you want to have secure coding standards, you want to have code reviews, and you want security pros to be your friends. They can't be foes. They can't be throwing things over the fence to one another. They need to be very tight-knit. That means that you're going to do things like static and dynamic code analysis, and you're going to be sharing those results transparently with those people who can help to deal with the results. You do want to make sure that you have a way to use the SBOM, especially if you're getting SBOMs. If you're using software, if you're buying software especially, and you get an SBOM, how are you leveraging it? How are you using it? So you will want to make sure that you have an SBOM management tool. For your own software that you are building, you will want the SBOM to be automatically generated as part of your CI/CD pipeline. So you've got secure coding practices, secure development practices, you've got cohesion of the team, and you've got your automated SBOM happening. Then you need to add on one more piece of this, and that's continuous monitoring and continuous compliance. In the same way I'm looking at everything that builds it, I also need to be looking at production, because things change in production, not because necessarily that somebody was tampering from inside your organization, tinkering to make something faster, but things change. Nefarious actors take action. So you need to be able to continuously monitor and make sure that's what we delivered into production. It's behaving the way we should be. And the final thing is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. Now, I know that gets really trite, but we've got to have transparency. This is not a time for us to be posturing about which role means the most. If we don't come together, we're going to continue to have bigger and bigger cybersecurity issues. And now is one of the most important times in our lifetimes that we need to start to really deal with this cohesively.
That was excellent. Great takeaway for organizations that have to start their journey or already midway through their journey of becoming more sensitive to the regulations and what they're doing about it, but making sure that they go back and look at the beginning process. Um, this has been fantastic. I want to allow you a chance to leave any parting words, talk anything about what you're doing with MITRE
Mm.
that you want to convey to the audience.
Sure. I will share that one of the most exciting things that I've gotten to do over the last few years has been to research. I've always been at the leading edge, but I've been the fast adopter of the research of others. And MITRE has allowed me to take on a role of a primary investigator. And I'm focused, doubled down on understanding humans and machines teaming together with this advent of generative AI in specific. So what happens if you and I are using AI as a tool? Well, that's a little bit different than when it gets inserted as a team member, and we have to understand what happens in the future. Everything that we do, Agile, DevOps, all of these different things have been calibrated and optimized for humans. Well, because we have frailties. I need to limit the work in progress. I need to make sure you don't suffer from cognitive overload. But what happens if I have a mechanical team member who can help with that? So I'm doubling down on that and the security implications of it. So I'm having just one hell of an exciting time right now.
Great, great. Could not agree more. The importance of of research, the research you're doing, the research all of us are doing, and conveying that research in these talks, but also the reports that we all love to share. Well, thank you again for
Mm-hmm.
joining today. Thanks for being part of our Regulate to Innovate series. Appreciate your time, and thank you again.
You're welcome. It was fun.